Imagine for a moment. An entire town, abandoning their homes, the lives they built, the memories they made, the futures they once dreamed of within those walls. Now imagine all of it falling silent, not because of a war that tore the nation apart, nor a famine that starved the land dry, not even because of a terrible disease that swept through the community. This was a different kind of exodus, one driven by a primal and unrelenting fear. The residents of Portlock, Alaska, packed what little they could carry and simply walked away. They left behind their houses, their belongings, and the very ground that had sustained them for generations. Yet, something in the deep, dark woods surrounding their home became so terrifying that they chose to become refugees in their own land rather than spend another night. They spoke of men who went into the woods to work and never came back. They told tales of bodies discovered in the forest, not just killed, but brutally torn apart, crushed as if by an impossible force. They described finding massive, unidentifiable tracks pressed deep into the mud near their homes, a chilling sign that something large and powerful was stalking them. To this very day, the ghost town of Portlock stands as a silent monument to an unsolved mystery. Was it a creature known to the modern world as Bigfoot, a territorial giant defending its domain, or was it something far more ancient, a malevolent entity that had claimed this stretch of coastline as its own? Tonight, we venture into the heart of this Alaskan mystery to uncover the truth. To understand the terror that gripped Portlock, you must first understand its isolation. The settlement was a remote outpost, situated on the southern coast of Alaska's rugged Kenai Peninsula. It was a place carved out of a brutal and untamed wilderness, accessible primarily by sea. This was a land of dense, primeval forests where the trees grew so close together that they blotted out the sun. Steep, jagged mountains loomed over the settlement. This fog could reduce visibility to mere feet, disorienting even the most experienced woodsmen. The weather was notoriously violent and unpredictable. For the people of Portlock, isolation wasn't just a fact of life, it was a constant, palpable presence. The town began its life as a strategic location, first inhabited by the indigenous Alutiiq people. Later, in the early 20th century, it became a bustling hub for fishermen and cannery workers. For a time, Portlock seemed like an ideal place for a hard-working community to thrive. But beneath the surface of this picturesque fishing village, a darker current was always present. It was a feeling that you were never truly alone, that something was always watching from the deep woods. Long before the stories of Bigfoot became a staple of American folklore, the indigenous peoples of the Portlock region already had a name for the creature they feared in the woods. The Alutiiq people passed down stories of an entity they called Nantiinaq. This was not some benevolent spirit of the forest. It was a figure of immense dread, a giant, hairy wild man of the forest, towering over a normal human. Its strength was inhuman, capable of tearing trees from the ground and throwing massive boulders with ease. Nantiinaq was said to be fiercely territorial and aggressive, known to stalk hunting camps, its glowing eyes watching from the shadows, its terrifying screams echoing through the valleys, a sound that could paralyze a man with fear. When the cannery workers and fishermen began reporting strange occurrences, they were seeing things that aligned almost perfectly with warnings passed down for centuries. The local Alutiiq residents would have recognized the signs immediately. Reports of a tall, hairy figure darting between trees. For them, this was not a new mystery. It was the return of an old and familiar terror. The people of Alaska already feared something similar to Bigfoot, and in Portlock, they believed they were living face to face with it. The transition from unsettling feelings to concrete, terrifying events began in the early 1900s. The first truly alarming incidents were not deaths, but disappearances. One of the earliest accounts involves a prospector named Albert Petka. In 1905, he ventured into the woods near Portlock. But on this day, he did not return to camp. A search party was organized, but they found no trace of him. Near the area where he was last seen, they discovered a set of enormous, human-like footprints. They were far larger than any man's print, and distinctly different from the track of a bear. The stride was immense, suggesting a creature of incredible size and power. It seemed something had found him. The story of the giant tracks spread quickly through the cannery and the logging camps. The whispers about the Nantiinaq grew louder. Workers became more reluctant to venture into the woods alone. More workers reported hearing blood-curdling screams echoing from the mountains at night. Blood-curdling, non-human scream. Fishermen out on the bay claimed to see a colossal, hairy figure standing on the shoreline. The town was no longer just an industrial outpost. It was becoming a besieged fortress, and its residents were beginning to feel like prey. As the years passed, encounters escalated from unnerving to overtly violent. One infamous tale. A logger working near the tree line. He failed to return at day's end. Fellow workers searched, fearing an accident. What they found was far more horrific. Some claim he was bludgeoned with heavy equipment. The force required was staggering. The injuries did not match a typical bear mauling. Witnesses believed this was not a known predator. Fear in Portlock became palpable. Loggers refused to work alone, moved in larger groups, and armed themselves. For the families huddled in their small wooden homes, these nights were an exercise in pure terror. In one particularly chilling account, a group of fishermen were working on their boat. Suddenly, a shower of heavy rocks began to rain down on them. This was not a random rock slide. It was a deliberate, hostile act. The terror was not confined to the dark woods alone. One of the most disturbing stories involves the discovery of a body, washed up on the beach. The body was found floating in the lagoon, having been dismembered or torn apart with a ferocity that defied belief. The victim had not simply drowned. The injuries matched other violent encounters attributed to the Nantiinaq. The sea had offered no protection. It meant nowhere was safe. The discovery on the beach made residents understand there was no coexisting. The only choice left was to flee. By the 1940s and into the 1950s, the cumulative effect of the terror had fundamentally changed the community of Portlock. Children were no longer allowed to play freely outdoors. The economic promise that had drawn people to Portlock now seemed like a devil's bargain. One by one, families started to pack their belongings and leave. They were fleeing. In the history of American towns, the closure of the local post office is often a death knell. For Portlock, this moment arrived in 1951. There were simply not enough people left to send or receive mail. Government files use sterile phrases like economic shifts and population migration. The closure was a quiet, administrative end to a story written in blood and fear. For the few remaining residents, it felt like the final betrayal, officially abandoned. Isolation became complete. By the early 1950s, Portlock was a shell of its former self. Until finally, there was only one left. One can only imagine the psychological toll of such an existence. Every sound from the forest would be magnified in the profound silence. Perhaps it was one final, terrifying encounter that broke his will, or perhaps it was simply the crushing loneliness. He too would have walked away, leaving Portlock entirely to the thing in the woods. The town was officially abandoned, surrendered completely to the forces that had terrorized it. When attempting to unravel the mystery, the most prominent and enduring theory points to a flesh-and-blood creature, Bigfoot or Sasquatch. The theory posits a relict hominid, a species of great ape or a pre-human that has somehow survived. Historical accounts align with the classic Sasquatch profile, the massive footprints, sightings of a tall, hair-covered figure, the powerful guttural screams. What gives the Portlock case weight is its deep historical context. This fear predates the modern Bigfoot sensation. The Nantiinaq people had stories stretching back centuries. The physical descriptions provide a chillingly consistent portrait, towering over humans, often 8 to 10 feet tall, body covered in a thick coat of dark hair. The reports of incredible strength, such as wielding heavy logging equipment like a club, indicate a creature of unimaginable power. Footprints are another cornerstone. Unlike bear tracks, these prints had 5 toes and a discernible arch, only grotesquely oversized. If a large, undiscovered primate were to exist, the remote wilderness surrounding Portlock presents one of the most ideal habitats imaginable. The region is exceptionally rich in food sources. The same salmon runs that drew human settlers would have provided a high-protein food source, such berries, edible plants, roots, and abundant game. The argument that we should have found a body is countered by the ecosystem itself, which is incredibly efficient at recycling organic matter. A carcass would leave little trace. Why would a Sasquatch be so aggressive here? The logging operations were actively destroying the creature's habitat. This wasn't just an intrusion, it was a home invasion. For an intelligent primate, the link between the loggers and the destruction of its forest would be obvious. The attacks can be seen as a direct response. Another factor could be the isolation. Lacking learned fear of humans, their response would be governed by instinct, to defend their territory with overwhelming force. It's also possible the town faced a specific individual, a rogue Sasquatch, exceptionally hostile, holding the entire town hostage. Despite the compelling circumstantial evidence, the Bigfoot theory faces one unavoidable hurdle: the complete lack of definitive physical proof. In the world of science, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and until a type specimen is produced, skepticism will remain. Proponents reply, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The proof remained a collective traumatic memory strong enough to depopulate a town. It's persuasive, but requires a leap of faith, an acceptance that the world's wild places may still hold secrets that have eluded the grasp of science. A darker and more supernatural set of theories emerge from the paranormal realm. One of the most popular points to a shapeshifter. Some reports describe the creature moving with an unnatural speed or disappearing completely. This is not typical behavior for a large physical animal. It seemed to understand human fear and exploit it, using psychological tactics like mimicking voices. This theory also addresses the perplexing lack of physical evidence. A supernatural shapeshifter could manifest, terrorize, and then dematerialize. Another theory suggests that strong emotions and traumatic events can be imprinted onto a physical location. The land itself can become a recorder. The screams heard from the mountains might not have been a monster, but the replaying of a death cry from a forgotten time. The entity that people saw might have been a thought form, a psychic projection created by the combined fear of the community, taking on the shape of the monster they most expected to see. It was a vicious cycle. The land replayed its traumatic memories, which caused fear, and that fear, in turn, fed more energy into the haunting. The final and perhaps most terrifying theory is that the entity of Portlock was demonic in nature, a non-human malevolent intelligence, a master of mimicry, able to take any form to instill terror. Its goal: shatter a community, replace hope with fear. This explains the oppressive, evil atmosphere visitors report today. Not just a memory of fear, but the presence of a malevolent consciousness. The abandoned town stands as a monument to its victory. It is a warning. Evil is real. It can take many forms, and some places it holds absolute dominion. Decades after the last resident fled, the legend of Portlock continued to grow. Paranormal investigators, cryptozoology researchers, and documentary film crews have ventured back. Armed with modern technology, these teams have returned to see if the monster of legend still walks the dilapidated streets. They place trail cameras along the same paths where loggers once vanished, hoping to capture a whisper of the force that once screamed. One such expedition, the 2021 series Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, saw specialists return for an extended investigation, determined to force an encounter. The team featured cryptozoologists, survival experts, and descendants of those who originally lived in the area, grounding the legend in historical context. Throughout their investigation, the team documented a series of unnerving events. They recorded powerful, unidentifiable screams, and documented instances of rock throwing, a direct echo of the attacks on fishermen decades earlier. Perhaps the most significant aspect is its ability to convey the raw psychological impact. Viewers could watch as hardened survivalists became visibly unnerved. Despite the renewed interest, the central mystery of Portlock remains stubbornly unsolved. no modern investigation has produced the smoking gun. Equipment malfunctions are rampant, with fully charged batteries draining in minutes and cameras failing at crucial moments. What modern investigators have succeeded in doing is corroborating the original story. It is one thing to read a frightening story. It is another to see a modern team experience the very same phenomena. The investigations will continue, but for now, the answer remains hidden in the deep, dark woods of Alaska, waiting in the silence. After journeying through tales of giant monsters, we must return to the cold, hard ground of reality and consider the skeptical explanation. First and foremost is the undeniable presence of grizzly bears. An attack from such an animal would be sudden, brutal, and utterly devastating. A bear could easily mangle a corpse in a way that would seem monstrous. It would be impossible to tell the difference between a bear that killed a man and a bear that found a man already dead. Beyond bears, the environment itself was a relentless killer. The weather in coastal Alaska is notoriously brutal. In a small, isolated community, rumors and stories can take on a life of their own. This process is known as social contagion. A bear crashing through the underbrush becomes the Nantiinaq. The wind howling through the mountains becomes its scream. The exaggeration of memory over time also plays a crucial role. Each retelling would have subtly altered the details, making the creature taller, the screams louder. But the skeptical explanations struggle to answer this. Why did an entire community abandon their homes? People in frontier Alaska have always lived with risk. The complete abandonment of Portlock suggests something fundamentally different. The strongest evidence against pure skepticism is the abandoned town itself. It is easy to dismiss a single story. It is much harder to dismiss the collective action of hundreds. So, what truly happened in Portlock, Alaska? The truth is likely not a single clean answer, but a messy, terrifying confluence of multiple factors. There can be no doubt that the Alaskan wilderness itself was a primary antagonist. These factors created a baseline of death and fear that was undeniably real. But it seems highly probable that the residents were also having encounters with a large, unidentified animal, a real aggressive cryptid. The creature became a container for all their fears, a single, terrifying face for every tragedy that befell them. When an entire town of hardened pioneers walks away from everything, you have to wonder what they knew that we don't. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not what was there, but what may still be there. But ask yourself one final question. Would you spend a single night alone on those shores to find out? Some places are abandoned for a reason.